stuff.
It's been a decent rally. It's too bad they're not flat. This might be warm, but for rallies. Do you want people?
No, because they're taller. I'd rather have the picture look good, because if I shoot that way, I gotta shoot under that. And if the people are over on that side, then they're gonna have their backs to it the whole time. It's not gonna host up. It probably has like 20 people. Stefan's there. You'll be happy to know that Stefan is watching the live stream right now.
Hi, Stefan.
And Brian Woods. We're at 27 already.
Oh, yeah.
It's got a match right now. The audience goes. Yeah.
Hi, Stefan.
A lot of energy.
Yeah. Number 4. Last one of the day. So, welcome. This is our 1946 Ford pickup that has been reborn through the Hershey swap meet. It was a crazy 4 days, lots of running, lots of walking, and another crazy 3 days driving at 700 miles back to Carter City. So, David, you got your piece down pat. 4 times in.
Yeah, so like Matt said, this is our truck. This is what we built in all its glory, mechanically. Claims is going to do the restoration. No? Okay. No, this is how it's going to look from here out. But anyway, so the idea was, for those of you not familiar with Hershey, it's a very, very large swap meet, similar to a flea market or what have you. But it is extremely large, and it has every part, in theory, known to man at this swap meet. To give you an idea for the size, by their discussion, they will tell you that it is 21 miles of walking to go every row zigzag as if you were at Tom's getting groceries. So it's big. And then when you throw on the side of it that it's Ford, Chevy, Chrysler, DeSoto, Overland, Willys, whatever you want to call it. I mean, every brand really pre-60. So there's no real muscle cars at this. It's all early stuff. And so I equate it to taking that tire, which was what was on this truck.
Nice and round.
Nice and round except for the one side. But taking that, having the Coast Guard helicopter drop it in East Bay and say, go find it. I mean, that is truly, the one fish in the whole thing to find. So how we got to this was I got back from Spring Carlisle, which is a show about 30 miles away, but about maybe half the size and still large. And Matt and I were having lunch, and he asked me how things went out there and so on and so forth. I said, that's good. There's a lot of people there. It was packed. And he said, well, what should we do for Hershey? We should be able to do something for Hershey that's, I don't know, different than a booth. And I said, what do you think about building a car? And he's like, and I'm thinking, this is the craziest thing I could possibly say.
There's no way.
And he goes, let's do it. And I'm like, oh, okay, sure, Matt.
And it just so happened that I had a meeting with all the right people that afternoon. So I pitched the idea. They said yes, and about 2.5 hours later, I realized we had to do it.
Yeah, so that brought in a whole new thought process because A, I thought it was a crazy idea to begin with, and B, he thought it was that way, and then everybody else thought it was great, which...
And then we decided we were going to drive it home afterwards.
Yeah, I mean...
Because where's the fun in building it if you can't drive it?
Right, exactly right. And why not drive it through the mountains? and back to Michigan. So
What could go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong with this plan? So as we started laying out the project, what we would need to do and what it would take and that type of stuff, we quickly realized that if we were going to drive it, which we kind of had to, if we were going to drive it, then we'd have to have a license plate. If you have a license plate, you got to have a title and you got to have a registration, and that means somebody crazy at the DMV's got to be not paying attention and give you something to do this with. And so then we realized that we had to have the truck or vehicle before we got there, because initially we were going to just buy it on the showgrounds, but getting the truck built in 4 days is easy relative to getting DMV to give you a plate in a week or month. So we kind of took off the search and going through Craigslist, and we were looking at all kinds of different avenues. The only thing we really narrowed down to was Flathead Ford.
And driving distance.
Within a driving distance to buy it.
Yeah.
And we had some plans to go down to Detroit and look around for some stuff, and the main one that we were looking after fell out. We couldn't go down there and look at it the day we had. So then we went and kind of regrounded and did it the old-fashioned way, and I called the guy I knew, and that guy called the guy he knew, and then the news that knew got him and I up on the Leland Peninsula, and this was sitting behind a gentleman's barn, just sitting there for 40 years. And we got the last time that the title was transferred was 1957. The last time it was plated was 1962. So from what I can see, this truck has not been driven on the highways legally since 1962.
And there's a fair chance it hadn't left Michigan
Ever.
until last week.
Right. And now it's went through 2 states.
That's right.
So
very hilly state.
yeah, so what we purchased and brought actually down to my shop was a rolling chassis, minus the flat spots on all 4 tires, and the cab in the front clip. No drivetrain, meaning no motor, no trans, no cooling. That's the stuff that makes it go down the road.
No electrical.
No electrical, except for the factory gauges that, oddly enough, still work.
All 5 work.
Yes. So that's what we took to Hershey and set on the show ground and said, all right, let's find the parts from here and let's put this thing together. I can think of at least 20 faces that were in the crowd right away going, you guys are crazy. But that same group of people helped us put it together. Meaning, it was kind of the ultimate in crowdsourcing to some extent, because not only for technical information, we got into a situation with the electrical side for the coil being 6 volt and having an ignition, the original ignition components in there, and Matt's like, hey, do we got to do this? I'm like, I don't know. Let's ask these guys.
Right. So we need to run a resistor on this coil. One guy, oh yeah, it changes it from 6 to 4.2.
Okay. So
I guess we'll run a resistor.
Right. So not only, like I said, the technical aspect of some things, to, gosh, we need to find a seat, we need to find a bed, we need to find this or that, whatever it might have been. And there would be people coming to us, not only saying, did you find an engine yet? No. You got one? Yeah, I do. So then we drove to Virginia and picked one up. But it was still that, everything and anything that we could possibly get from the Hershey swap meet, we did. Of course, there's always the brake lines, and we can ask Nick because he made all the runs to Napa.
There's a fuel filter and some fuel lines, things you don't really want to put on.
Yeah, things that it's not a good idea. Meaning, so on the way home, we have the token issues here or there, and it just so happened to be the used electric fuel pump that we were using.
Climbing a hill in Pennsylvania.
I gave out. Yeah. So, but that's the general, I'll say, of what we were after going out there and why we did it. Because, the thought process is our hobby alive and well to still support each other? So, in the day of technology, and you're just looking on the computer and it's a bunch of faceless user IDs, will people really do what they used to do and work together and to do something? And that's what we wanted to see. And quite honestly, every one of us were just flabbergasted. Not only from outside folks helping us, but then also the internal group that was there. I mean, everything from honest to God, well, exactly God, McKeel, down to us was there helping.
While we were putting the engine in, we ran out of hands, and McKeel just shoved it in, and the smile on his face when that thing sunk into place was priceless.
Yeah, exactly. And Doug Clark, VP in marketing, he was out tromping the field. That guy smiles big all the time, but it honestly hit here when he was coming back with parts that we needed, and I think he probably didn't understand really how that energy that you get when you find the piece that you're after, but I know he does now, and that was what we were after to help everybody to understand.
There's an 8-ball shift now that will live in this truck forever, because that's the one Doug found. We all decided we'd been behind the 8-ball for 4 days in a row.
So the balance of our team that we drafted are these two fine folks, and I'll let them kind of give you their side of the experience and some things that they learned or didn't learn or would like to erase from their minds forever.
The whole thing was fantastic. I live in Maryland, so I kind of got dropped into this project after the basic chassis idea was all done, and got to see it for the first time with my own eyes when we got to Hershey. And it was then that I realized this is a big deal. This is really, there's a lot of work that's got to be done. But we all pull together on different projects that we've all done. I've never restored a 46 Ford truck with a flathead in it.
And you still haven't.
No, yeah. And, but to go and find all these different pieces randomly from different people. I mean, this 53 or 52 bed was the only one there. If we hadn't found this, we would have had to cobble something even more bizarre together. These rear fenders, you can tell, so these would be where the original fenders would go. We obviously didn't find any of those. These are from a Model A or a Packard or an Overland. We don't have a clue what they're from.
One each.
Yeah, and that was the joke. So the fenders were like, well, I had money and I went out and found that, got the fenders and brought them back. I said, got the pair of fenders. And after we got them all put on, we realized later that they are completely different from each other. So as you walk around, they're patinaed exactly the same. So they may have been on some other jalopy on the truck for 100 years before this, but
they are right and the left.
Yeah, but they are right and the left. And the bed kit went in there really nice, and the more wood we put in it, the more support we put under it. It's almost like the whole truck started to straighten out. The more screws we put in the wood bed in the back here. So it was fantastic. I like engines. We had a whole lot of fun stuff with the motor on this thing because we were so proud of ourselves of doing the right amount of research to find the right era of flathead Ford V8. And we were so close because we got it, it's hanging on the picker, and some old codger walks by and says, you're gonna need a truck oil pan, and then wanders off. Oh my God, he's right. So then we had to use more contacts of people that had come by and visited and race in front of David's to find the right oil pan and fabricate more stuff. And the mounts had to be different than the passenger car motor that this was originally because they're different on a truck. So to put different water pumps on it, with different pulleys, and if those pulleys are different, you got to put a different fan pulley on it, a different crank pulley on it. And it just sort of went like that. I mean, for the first couple of days, I think it was kind of 3 steps forward, 1 step back, when we just keep thinking that we're getting closer and then we have to stop. And
it's like shaking an 8-ball.
Yeah, it was something. But I'm very proud of the way that it all came together, and aesthetically, I think it's beautiful. With all the lichen and stuff, you can't fake that stuff. I mean, this legitimately sat out in the field for 50 years or something. I mean, without moving, because the sun has to rise and set on it, in a certain way through the seasons for it to patinate like this. So, I don't know. That's my spiel. I got a kick out of it. Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, this truck and this build and the whole experience entirely is just, I can't even describe. It's been awesome, but what really brought us all together and what really helped us finish this truck and get to Traverse City is the camaraderie within the hobby, within Hershey, and within Hagerty, because all of us had our hands in this truck at one point or another in the build. But one example is we obviously had to find a truck seat. be able to drive it home. And this lady just randomly came up to me. We had this whiteboard with a big list of all the parts that we needed, and we were crossing them off as parts were found. Well, she comes up to me and says, I've seen this guy here at Hershey for the past 4 or 5 years with these 1946 truck bench seats. But let me show you where he's at. So I kind of hightailed it out of the build area and followed her down there. And she brought me to his trailer. He didn't have anything unpacked yet. He had just gotten there. But I could see these bench seats all the way up on the top shelf in his trailer. So I start talking to him a little bit, and I show interest. He says, well, I haven't gotten anything unpacked. I said, oh, no problem. I will help you unpack. I don't want these seats to go anywhere. They could be the only ones in Hershey for all that I know.
I think they were.
I think they were, yeah. I mean, we made our rounds. We were trying to fit bucket seats in there, which just kind of looked ridiculous. But anyway, he had asked for $400 for them, and I was like, the last seats we're looking at were $250. So I talked to him a little more, told him about the project, what we're about, what we're trying to accomplish, and I said, "Will you take 3 for him?" And he hesitated a little bit, but he took it. I brought him back to the booth. And throughout the whole event, he kept coming back and seeing how the build was going. And he would come back and see me and shake my hand a couple times and talk to us. So he was like kind of in it with us from then on. And it all kind of, the whole event kind of worked like that. So it was pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, and I came across what I called my electrical guy. Because he came by the booth and he says, I got stuff for this truck. And his setup was all electrical, distributors and switches and voltage regulators and all that kind of stuff. And he said, come on down to my booth. All right, and I followed him. And he just starts grabbing the best out of every bin. And like, here, you want this one, you want this. Oh, you should check out this distributor. And here's the voltage regulator. I'm like, all right, well, let me know what I need. And he goes, no. I don't want anything for this. He says, I've had Hagerty for years. You guys took really good care of me on the claim, and I want to see that truck finished. So take this stuff back. And then he proceeded to show up a couple times a day. Didn't need anything else. I've got stuff, and he even dropped off food for us at one point. So it was just amazing that everyone got so involved in this project that they wanted to see our success. They all got a little hand in it. So, his headlight switch is our headlight switch. His starter switch is our starter switch. So he can look at this truck and know that he had a hand in it in some way or another.
I think the other interesting impact, and you talked about this earlier, Matt, was the AACA is always struggling to some extent with how to get people involved and bring them in and get the next generation. They talk about that a lot. And the guy that's in charge of the chocolate field, there's roughly 4 or 5 fields, and they have someone that's in charge for any issues that comes up. He came over to the booth one afternoon, and he's like, I want to let you guys know that you just did something that we haven't been able to do for a long time. He says, I got vendors that are mad at me and always pushing me about no traffic in the chocolate field. He said, but from listening, you guys working on this project, he says, I can't believe the foot traffic that we've got in here. And I know from my experience being there on Saturdays, Fridays and Saturdays, that field is normally empty. I mean, and you're talking a field that's half the size of Cherryland Mall's parking lot, empty, and it was still full or reasonably full. I mean, that was a pretty big impact. So it impacted, the project in general impacted everything in a very positive manner in the way that we wanted to, and really the way they wanted to see it. So that led to a lot of discussions of what are you doing next?
Yeah, my favorite was Thursday afternoon, which is day 2 if you're counting. People coming up and going, oh, this is great. What are you doing next year? Not done yet. I at least want to finish this project before I start thinking about that.
Yep. And of course, driving, when we took off on, well, if you listen to any of the live feed when we started it up on I guess that was Saturday night, right. It was less than charming because it was like a box of fireworks going off, popping and hacking, and we got those issues ironed out, and started on our voyage coming home on Sunday, going across the mountains through switchbacks. I loved Matt's comments of, this is a 180-degree turn at 15 miles an hour posted. So it was literally boom, boom, and a truck that hadn't run for 60 years.
And that wouldn't pull up the hill in third gear, so you're in second doing 20
Right.
up the hill.
This isn't broad daylight running all the time either. You guys were, it was at night,
Oh.
you got rain going. I mean, there was a lot of hazards going on here.
And as much as the LED taillights were not correct for this truck, everyone could see us behind us, which was the bigger issue.
That's a bulb.
Yeah, although it was a little alarming initial surprise, or maybe I should say, when we pulled the headlights on for the first time in the dark and realized that they were doing this.
And then a couple hours later realized that all of the adjustment screws were either solid, rusted
Those
in
little
place,
things you forget about.
or just spun freely and never taken it.
So, and then, yeah, so anyway, so, we had our little issues. We had a fuel pump issue. We got to meet a really nice gentleman down in the holler, so to speak, that I don't know that my own parents would have taken care of as nice as he did. But I mean, it was, that experience in itself was, the getting home part was equally as fun as the build part. We all took rotation through driving and getting the experience of the truck. It's fun going down the we call them blue roads, but non-freeway roads. Doing 55 and getting the wave with all fingers. Can't say we all did that. There's some infatuation that people have to pull out in front of you.
I love seeing the back of somebody's head when they're coming across the lane. And you have to stop this thing by lifting your whole body off the seat and applying.
Yes.
And as soon as you get off the gas, it goes. It's fun. Yeah, there's no horn, but there is 110 decibel exhaust system on it. So got them out of the way.
We weren't sneaking anywhere.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So that's in general. I mean, that's what happened, so to speak. We had a lot of people watching live feed, interacting with that, which to me was just amazing. The number of people that we were answering questions on the fly and bringing a separate camera in and really doing the showing what we were working on and where things were at. Going back again, how we sourced the parts. I mean, we used Everyday Joe's to get as many parts as we possibly could. We did have Brad had talked to Coker Tire, and Corky brought tires and wheels over for us, which he's not going to be happy we got the white walls dirty. Because that was his explicit. Yeah. And then, well, that's true. I don't think he left. I think they were going to leave the field. And then
We did say save the boxes.
And then Posies Hot Rod Shop brought in some Super Slide springs for us. The original springs were all going to be used, with the exception of when we found that this one was broke, and it was the main leaf, and it basically would separate at any given point. So we felt that was probably a safety upgrade at that point in time. And we did, before we left Traverse with it, we went through the nice stuff like brakes, and we made sure it would steer. In Matt's words, we got to be able to stop and pull over. Probably a good
That was a
idea.
minimum.
That was the minimum requirement.
Stop and pull over.
And then we also used Woodward Fab to help out with tools. They sell kind of the everyday guy fabrication tools, and I contacted them and went over and utilized their stuff to make floor pans and a couple tidbits here and there that we needed to not make anything restored, but at least not our feet getting caught in the drive shaft going down the road, and keep some of the bugs out.
Yeah, it's not a Flintstone truck.
Correct. So, like I said, we weren't after how well could we source something out of a catalog. We wanted to use those used parts the best we could. In fact, really the only used part that bit us is the fuel pump.
Fuel pump, yeah.
So,
And by my estimation, also that coil,
yeah.
which was not supplied by my electrical guy. That came on the engine. But,
Because he was quick to ask.
He was all over Facebook. Oh God, it wasn't me, was it? But anyways, we've got about 5 minutes left. Do we have questions from anyone?
I have a question.
Yes.
How much did it cost? How much was this beauty? How much did it cost us? To build it?
That is the $1,000 question. We haven't figured it all out. Our best estimation is under $10,000, start to finish. Now, how much under $10,000 is a job for the accountants? But we are under 10, and we had a certain amount of money, cash, which is the only way you can buy swap meet parts, with us, and we did not exceed that number. So
We all negotiated the parts like we would have if it was our own truck using our own money. I mean, that was part of the fun of it, knowing that we were going as with a swap meet, negotiated it all down to the penny mentality. It worked out very well.
I mean, even after, like I said, we picked the motor we got from a gentleman that came to the booth and said, "Hey, did you guys find an engine yet?" And I said, "No, you got one?" And he goes, "I do." I said, "Okay, where's it at?" He says, "It's at my house." "All right, where's your house?" "Virginia." Virginia's a long ways from Michigan, but I had no idea for sure where it's at from Pennsylvania. And he says, "Oh, it's 2.5 hours." I'm like, 2.5 hours? Okay, we can do that. So we went down there and looked at this motor. We were able to start it on a test stand he had it sitting on. So that was the deal side of it of, sweet, I'm pretty confident in telling these guys we can get home in this motor because it runs. But I also never sat there and went, "Here's all the money I have, how much do you need?" And basically said, all right, and I had an idea going into it, what he wanted for it, but in that, like Brad said, as if this was my money. I'm stingy with my money. I'm not spending more than I have to for something. And if I had to walk away after 5 hours of driving, I was going to do that. And he kept to what he told us. He didn't put us over a barrel when we got down there and was cool about it. He says, "Yep, this is what I told you. Here's what it is." Threw in some extra parts. And what time we get home, Tara? 2?
Yeah, 2:30ish.
So,
Internet question?
An internet question from Stephen in Portland.
Stepping in Portland, what can we do for you, sir?
It's 2-round. Were you surprised at how many parts were donated, and was there an expectation/hope that vendors would get on board and donate, or were we fully prepared to do that?
We were prepared to pay. There was an itch in my mind before we started that the vendors would get into it.
Yeah.
They got way more into it than I expected, though. Everyone we came across, even if we were paying full price for the part, I would say, "I need this," and the vendor would go, "Oh, okay, what are you working on?" "I'm working on a 46 pickup." "Is that the one that you guys are building?" "Right, yeah, that's it." And usually end up with a deal, if not just, "Here, finish the truck," So no, I didn't really go in with an expectation. You can't. It could have gone anyway. But that was, like David said, one of our tests. Is everyone going to get emotionally involved with this build? And they absolutely did. Yes.
This is from Brian Woods. He was one of our really loyal followers. He said, "How many miles down the road did it take to feel comfortable and feel like you would make it home?"
All of them.
695 of the 700 miles.
Well, we have the 125-mile towing package. As soon as I enter that window,
That's true.
we're home.
But honestly, it did make it home with never being hooked to a tow strap and never going on a trailer. We drove it all the way.
Yeah. Well, Brad pushed it for about 20 feet.
Still goes.
I know. Just saying. I purposely backed up and covered that, and it kept going.
Rob.
If you had to guesstimate, so I'm sure you probably don't have the number down, how many individual parties would you say contributed to the cost, either by donating or purchasing, like total number of source parties?
I mean, just a number, 50?
Yeah, I would say between 40 and 50 would be.
I
a
mean,
good
we had a
estimate.
question relative to how many states built the truck.
Oh, wow.
And I estimated right around probably 15,
Yeah.
for sure. So,
What do you do with it now? What happens to it next?
Yeah, okay, so being the fourth one, I didn't know if I'd covered this yet. 1 week from tomorrow, a couple of crazy guys are going to get in this thing and drive it to Las Vegas, Nevada for SEMA. It's going to take 9 days or so to get there. And we're following, he had mentioned Posies Hot Rod Shop got us the springs. Well, they do a tour from Hershey, Pennsylvania to Las Vegas, Nevada called the Driven Dirty Tour, where they take all these nice, beautifully built hot rods and drive them for 10 days without ever washing them and park them outside of SEMA. And that seemed right up the alley of this truck. So we promised not to wash it the whole way there. Yeah, so that's the immediate, it'll be at SEMA at our booth on display to talk about the story of the truck. And then, you know, we're going to keep it. We're going to keep it just as it is. And we're going to do driving experiences. We're going to do how-to videos with maintenance on trucks like this, because this flathead went everything for a while. And it'll just kind of be a well-known Hagerty truck.
we don't have to worry about putting a scratch on it.
Right here, it's gonna get the Lambo, the Countach.
It needs more done for us.
Yeah.
There's one from Jeff Nichols. He had the two little ladies with him.
I
His two
remember
bags. Jeff says, how did the clutch linkage work?
The clutch linkage worked flawlessly. I'll honk my own horn for that. No, seriously, it did work well. Jeff and his family brought lawn chairs in their own personal cooler and sat around us for at least 2 nights and spent a good portion of the evening. In fact, I think the one little girl's name was Claire, which was pretty cute because the other one was back and forth. But anyhow, and it was neat because having kids of my own, it was cool that he brought his kids and immersed them into what we were doing and in that side of things. But yeah, so we went through, we found, you know, as we went through this, it seemed like every time we would gain ground, we'd step back with a problem that something didn't connect. And what he's referring to in the clutch linkage was exactly that. We had the clutch bar coming down from the pedal, and we had the transmission, but nothing to make that connection. So I sent our fearless crew out with some cameras. Jeff and Nick went out and got some ideas of how things looked, and we figured out how to make it work.
The next morning, someone came by and went, "You figured out that clutch linkage?" Yeah, we made something. Oh, I had one at my booth. Well, where were you yesterday?
Yeah, exactly. But going back to with the kids sitting there, you know, I mentioned this earlier jokingly, but you know, I do apologize when parents call in later on this week, or maybe they won't. But whenever there was someone under roughly the age of 16, I've highly encouraged them to go out and try it. We live, you know, they constantly hear, "Don't try this at home." I told them to go try it at home. I said, "Your dad won't mind. Just take it." So.
This is from CCTV user who is watching from the UK. He said, what would you guys do differently this year?
1 day earlier.
Right, we'd start Tuesday, and we would be done in time to take it to the show floor Saturday. That'd be about the only change. I mean, I have no complaints with how this whole thing went together.
No.
I would want a secure caged area that we could use.
Cage match?
Yeah, cage match. So you could throw up some barriers so we don't have to put it all in a big trailer, lock it up, and then spend all that time bringing it back out.
So
losing tools and everywhere.
As part of the build, we had to shut down basically at 10 p.m., which we pushed to 11, and couldn't set up again until 7 a.m. So, because people camp at Hershey. So we had to break down everything and load it into the trailer at night and then unload everything in the morning. So every day we were losing at least an hour.
Yeah. And it was painful by the end of those days.
And I would love to see the looks on any one of the AACA judges if this were to roll on their show.
It would very much be a display at our booth, not entering.
It's HPOM. It's new. It's Historic Preservation of Original Moss.
Oh, sweet.
It's a new class. They're gonna love that.
Which it rained on the moss Tuesday, and it greened up really nicely. Still very alive. Anyone else? Internet? Not a truck. Something else. We can't do the same thing over again.
Yeah, gotta put some thought into that.
The bicycle.
We are going to build a grill from Home Depot.
And a cooler from Igloo.
And then we're just going to sit around and talk about last year.
Yeah, I never thought I would see continental breakfast at a hotel room at 5:30 in the morning, because that's just not my style.
And enjoy it.
And enjoy turkey bacon again.
So, I think that's pretty much it. Please feel free to come up, look, go, Rod. Careful not to scratch yourself on the truck, but it's very much user-friendly, scratch and smell kind of a thing.
Okay.
Certainly.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure. It is 3 days after we finish it.
This is originally a steak bed truck, so that's actually base. But we know what the overall price was.
I'm going to tease this thing down towards me.
Actually, you can talk to this. I'll just.
Okay. So, overall price, I don't know. It was under 10,000 for sure, but we haven't added everything up. We don't know how much under 10,000. So, sorry.
Get that Zoom cam going.
Full NASCAR.
Stand 621 is right there. This 6 miles up.
That really did a lot of work with that wiring.
Okay. To be able to.
It's actually wired from Terra. Spent the better part of the
Behind the scenes.
Well,
Really nice guy. We took it back over. We want to run volume. He gave us a price. And see what it's a good price.
Is he gonna stop it?
Like, did they send out an email blast to let those people know that we were doing this? Or those people just tune in organically?
It's a newsletter and Hagerty.
It was Mr. Kramer.
White dash swing.
What's that?
Like sent
Oh,
out
white
like
dash swing.
the day after I opened back then, and there's no email.
No, these files are
Because it's got a.
She's like, what are we doing? I'm like, I don't care. We're
The next day, what it would do is, like when it needed really, when it would start, it was only so when you're trying to fill a hill hard later in the night, it would have a lot more fuel. And it would pop. I mean, it was just neat. So then we would stop. We didn't have a mechanic. Yeah, we didn't have a mechanical even on it, and we decided we'd just go full electric and not worry about it. But yeah, so that our first time we installed, we were on it. We actually did it 3 hours. So we were, Fenders were doing that. I thought I was out of gas at that point. Well, it was so then to drive it next way that night, we had checked our pump pressure at Hershey, pump flow. Well, when I pulled the fuel filter off, I got 3 hours. I'm like, all right, fuel. Even though everything was brand new, the fuel filter is junky. And when you check it out, got rid of it, spliced in a straight line, the next morning, we go, whereas the night before, you let it run, you let it place it late. And then when you got to go, it wouldn't. It got you had to wait for it to cool down. That was why we put oil in the next day. Well, what it was so then it couldn't push past, so it was starting itself to fuel by heat, but really wasn't heat, it was and then finally, like say midnight the next day, the pump it was running, but nothing was running. So then that gave us finally the switch done, and then it was just a major difference. All the truck. Yes. So basically what I wanted to is I had no idea what she looked like. So what I had, like I said, I had